to our second Organizer411 event live, and I'm just going to tell you up front, when you do live stuff, you never know what's going to happen. So we're going to just we're going to wing our way through this hour. We're going to be taking your questions. So if you do have a question, we want you to put that in the chat box. We also had several pre-submitted questions as well. We're going to get through as many questions as we can through the course of the hour here, and we'd like to hear from you. So feel free to start putting those in. And I want to introduce our esteemed panel. First of all, we have Deb Lee. Deb, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
All right. And Deb, tell us where you're at in the United States and the name of your company.
I am in Maryland, so I'm close to the District of Columbia, the seat of our government, and I work with entrepreneurs via sohotechtraining.com to find all the right tech tools for their company. So I'm all about the tech.
All right, and we're going to move up a little farther north. Claire Kumar, tell us where exactly you are broadcasting from and the name of your company.
I'm broadcasting from Toronto, near downtown Toronto, and the name of my organizing and productivity consulting business is Stream Life, as in streamline your life all smushed together. And you can find me at streamlife.ca. And I also have a product company, which we've talked about before, Pleo.com.
Awesome. And now, can you introduce our third esteemed panel?
Yes, I would love to introduce you, or invite Debbie to introduce herself, actually. Debbie, tell us where you're from and the name of your company and what you do.
You got it. Thank you, Claire, and thank you, John. Debbie Rosemont, and I am in here from the Seattle, Washington area, and my business is Simply Placed. Our website is www.itssimplyplaced.com. If you do a /SNEED, we'll see some things specifically for this hangout. And we help both residential and business clients get and stay organized and use the most of their time.
All right. Well, we're going to we'll let the audience know too. We have some relay issues with Debbie's audio, so Claire is going to be our official interpreter, which is kind of nice because she's from Canada. But so we'll sort all that out. But anyway, I'm going to start with you, Claire, because our first question comes from Christine down in Florida on the total other side of the United States. And she just simply says, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know where to start. You know, and I think I'm going to have each of you answer this question because I do hear that one a lot. How do you get started if you're just overwhelmed?
Yeah, so I'm going to repeat the question right now so I give that to Debbie, so you can be thinking about it, Debbie. This is, where do you start when you're feeling overwhelmed? And this is for Christine, I think it is, in Florida. So, I mean, it's interesting, when people hire an organizer, they think they have to do a lot of homework to get ready. My only homework for a client is to identify the things that are bothering you. So once you come to terms with what that list is, it's going to give you a sense of the real trouble spots you need to solve. That's not necessarily where you're going to start to tackle. So, for example, I was with a client yesterday, and we're working in her office, and if you looked in the office, you would have seen bankers boxes 6 and 8 in a corner, all under the desk, and so on. And she wanted to start by trying to organize those boxes. The challenge was there were stuff filing cabinets and stuff drawers, and what we needed to do first in this case is create some more storage. So we actually had to go into the areas which to the eye look fine because you can close the door, it looks fantastic, but you got to open those drawers, open those closets, create space in those environments by editing out what you don't need, and then you can start to process the things that are lying around in your open space. So there's one tip for you.
So, you know, when we have clients tell us that they're overwhelmed, and that's a really common thing we hear, by the way, when people call, they're overwhelmed by the thought of what they think it's going to take to get to the end result they want. And so we work with them to try and break down the project into smaller pieces, so that it isn't such a big, overwhelming mountain to climb, but rather the one step at a time idea. So that first step doesn't have to feel so overwhelming. So really thinking about what their goals are in organizing, and then coming up with a plan of action. So whether that's somebody trying to tackle organization on their own, or whether we get the pleasure of working with them, we always talk about what the end result is, but then what is our action plan to get there, what steps will be involved, and that can often help take away that overwhelm.
All right, Deb Lee, your chance to answer the question about being overwhelmed.
I agree with both of these ladies. You do want to start small. Oftentimes people will say, you know, my entire house needs help, or my whole car, or it's the entire thing that needs help. But just to kind of laser in on that one thing that you think you want to tackle, and maybe look for the obvious things, like the things that are obviously trash, or the things that are obviously meant for the recycling bin. Start with those. You know, it could be that you need to make a pathway into the room. So start really small, laser in, and just start. Do a little bit, even if it's 5 minutes. You know, just take some time to just begin, because then you'll start building momentum and you won't feel as overwhelmed because you're moving forward. It might be a small step forward, but it's still forward.
All right, Deb Lee, we're gonna stay with you. I have a question here from David. Which says, how much value does one put in purging what we don't need? And when we do need to purge, wouldn't it be great to have a list of places where we can donate those items that we don't need? What do you, when you're helping clients purge, what are some of the common places that you're going to have them donate things to?
I think it depends on what they have that they need to donate. So things like linens and, you know, towels and sheets, those kinds of things, animal shelters really love them. If they're in poor condition, an animal shelter will still take them because, you know, they just want it for bedding. But if they're in great condition, then you can certainly look at any local charity that's, you know, close to your neighborhood. Goodwill is one of those that I like to refer clients to. So I'd say probably do a search in your neighborhood to see what you've got. Sometimes homeless or family shelters need things as well. Sometimes it's, you know, tchotchkes that they need. Sometimes it's other things. So I'd probably do a bit of a Google search or a Bing search or a Yahoo search just to kind of see what's in your neighborhood, just based on the type of items that you have. Of course, you know, as long as they're in good functioning order that someone else can use, then certainly pass them on. But if they're broken or in disrepair, then those are things that you want to not donate.
Okay, great. Well, I want to remind the people that are watching live, this is also being recorded for a replay, but for those watching live, we do have the chat box where you can enter your question in. Also, we are running the hashtag Organizer411. We can try to pick up your question off of Twitter. And we're going to move to another question here. We'll give this one to Claire about filing systems, and this is a question about how do you just set up a basic filing system, and what are some of the things, like this question is asked, is color good? How do you organize it for someone who's just trying to put a filing system together?
Okay, that's a great question, and there's no one right way, but let me give you some things to consider so you can build something that works for you. Number one is to keep it as simple as it needs to be, so that really you want to put as little effort into organizing as you can so that return on investment is there. When you go to find something, you're able to find it with the appropriate amount of time. So let's just say that to start with. The biggest challenge I see in terms of filing is a lot of people will go and buy an accordion folder and it's pre-labeled A to Z. And then they go and try and start using that as their filing system. And let's just take your car, for example. You could file that under A for automobile, C for car, V for vehicle, H for Honda. So there's a myriad of ways to kind of file the same thing. What you've got to get clear on is how you're going to think about it. Mm-hmm. And personally, what I recommend is coming up with a few larger categories. And by that I mean, in my home organizing, I'll recommend doing a category for assets. So it's your home, it's your boat, it's your car, it's your cottage, it's your investments, your liabilities, your activities and interests. So really big categories that'll help you zone into a specific area. And then within that category, go A to Z. So in insurance, for example, then you'll have your automobile insurance, your home insurance, your life insurance, health insurance, and so on. So there's no one right way. Think about how you'll find something and go that way. And the simplicity concept extends to color, because you're going to add color if it helps you when you're finding something, or it helps you distinguish one section from another. Don't add color in if you're not going to use it. Add it in if it helps, because the reason not to make it complex is you might add a barrier to actually filing something. For example, if you run out of blue folders and you put all your finance in blue, all of a sudden you can't file something, and now you have a pile just accumulating there because you don't have all the supplies on hand. So whatever organizing system you set up, keep it simple, keep the supplies on hand, and keep it working for you.
Well, let's pass that question also on to Debbie Rosemont about setting up a filing system, A to Z, color. Debbie, how do you recommend your clients? And Claire, maybe you can answer that.
Sure. Debbie, we're talking about filing systems and how you might recommend someone set up their filing system, whether to go A to Z, to use color. What are your tips on filing?
So I agree with what I heard you say, Claire, about broad categories. I like to think of a filing system as a tree. And the really broad categories are the trunk of the tree, and that could even be what drawer things are kept in as a trunk. And then the large branches off of that filing system are subcategories, and then twigs off of that, individual folders even within the subcategories. So I like alphabetical, but you need to think about what you're going to look for 6 months from now when you go to find a document, not necessarily what are you calling it now. So Claire gave a great example with the car or automobile. And again, insurance, if you were to file insurance things alphabetical by auto insurance, home insurance, dental insurance, health insurance, life insurance, it'd be all over the board. But if you do insurance first and then comma, whatever the description is, so adjective second. The same with if you're running a business, clients, you could have residential clients and commercial clients and archived clients and prospective clients. Instead, if you do clients, comma, residential, clients, comma, commercial, clients, comma, you get the idea, then it all does fall nicely under C for clients, and that's what you think of as the category to look under.
Well, that's a great piece of advice too, and I know labeling is a big part of setting up a filing system. Deb, Lee, we're going to throw this question to you. This is from Robin, who's on live. She says, I've always had the best intentions to find a home for everything, like group-like things together, but what do you do when you have only one thing that doesn't have an obvious home? She says, whenever I try to come up with a place for it, I forget where to put it. Can you answer that question?
Well, I guess one of the things I often ask when someone presents that type of question would be, where do you use it? What's the point of contact? Is it something that you use in the kitchen, in the living room? Sometimes it's a book. It might be, a number of things. So what's the point of use? Where do you typically engage with that item or set of items? And is there a way to carve out some space where you tend to use it? So I'd probably think about that. And if she chats in maybe specifically what she's talking about, maybe we can dive into it. But I would say, where do you use it?
All right. Well, Robin, there's your challenge. If you're still on, where do you use it? We can share that with the other viewers. But we're going to move over to Claire now, and we'll have both Claire and Debbie answer this question, which is about setting goals and resolutions for the new year. A lot of people this time of year are asking about that, and this was. Do you have a way that you like to set New Year's resolutions or goals for the coming year?
So I'll say the question now for Debbie so you can start thinking about it. It's, do you have any recommendations about how people can set goals and resolutions for the new year? And it's an interesting question because I think the new year, it's a punctuation point where it gives us pause to think about how we've been living and gives us a basic reset button. But I actually try and be looking at my life more regularly throughout the year so that every January 1st, it's not a big reset, it's minor tweaking. And I think that's a really fundamental thing to think about, and it's a fundamental shift. And so I have a whole sort of approach to lifetime management, I call it, and it encourages you to think about the satisfaction that you're having in any given area of life. I boil it down to 6 areas, And I want you to think of the satisfaction you have in the purpose in your life, in the healthfulness in your life, in the lifestyle that you're living. Is your environment the one you would like to be really in? With your relationships, for example, development. These are all different areas to get a pulse on. And then what I suggest you do is think about things that you could do to bring your happiness up in areas where they're not giving you the satisfaction that you want. Once you've identified a couple of actions for a couple of areas, I don't want you to get so big that you paralyze and don't do anything, then it's getting concrete about scheduling them. So you're going right to your calendar and blocking in the time at the gym, or the fact that maybe you don't know what gym to belong to. So the first step is, in fact, identifying what gym you want to belong to. Or if you don't know how you want to exercise, backing up and figuring out what that is. But whatever that first step is, it's taking it and getting into your calendar. And that's going to give you a really concrete way to move forward and make some shifts in your life that are going to really drive your satisfaction, not just in January, but throughout the year. Debbie, I think I can pass that to you now.
Yeah, I would add, I think those are all great suggestions. I think that January and the turn of the calendar is such a natural time to think about goals. And I do like the word goals instead of resolutions. Resolutions to me feels like you're saying I haven't done something in the past, so to now I resolve to. And I think there's some guilt associated with it. But I think setting goals for a year ahead, it's a natural time to do it. So I say go with that. To me, one of the most important things is making sure that your goals are SMART goals, and that's the acronym SMART. S for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable, R for results-oriented, and T for timely. So, if you say, hey, I want to be healthier in this new year, that's not specific, really measurable. Who knows if it's attainable, it's not results-oriented, and then it's not time-sensitive, but instead to say, I want to drink 64 ounces of water each day for the next month would fit all those criteria. And, like Claire said, it might be a step towards a goal of becoming healthier. So I think about what your values are and set goals that you'll be able to know are specific and measure. How, can you tell when you're halfway there? Can you tell when you're done? When do you know you have succeeded? So I think those things are important, and the timeline also very important to set a deadline. Otherwise, it's a wish or a dream, really, in my mind, instead of a goal.
Well, of course, Debbie.
John, I would love to add to that if I could.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Because I'm sort of the tech person here, I think if you are inclined to use technology, I would look for an app that could help you to sort of track some of those goals. I really like the word goals versus resolutions as well. I don't believe in resolutions. I think they do have a little bit of a negative spin. And I really think an app can, if you like that sort of thing, or even just writing them down, just really sort of track what one or two things you're going to focus on. Or sometimes, it could just be that you have a word that you're focusing on. Maybe it's being more mindful or being more purposeful or excellent. And so that word is going to be the thread that sort of follows you throughout the year, and everything you do is focused on that. But one of the apps that I really like is called Wonderful Day. It's a way to track a goal, very visually, so you can see each time you've sort of done something towards that goal and each time that you haven't. So that would be one that I would have, people sort of check out. And I would also suggest taking a look at Zig Ziglar. He has a 7-step goal setting process that I think is phenomenal.
Hey, and you can't argue with Zig, so.
No.
Anyway, okay, we're going to move the next question to Claire. This was from Victoria, who's on live. It says, looking for organizing tips for the person who is more visual. When I file things, I forget them, so lots of stuff ends up cluttering my desk. I've tried the on-the-desk file folders, but they get forgotten. So for the visual organizer, and I know that's a category of people, I think I'm in that category as well. What are some tips, Claire, that you have for the visual organizer?
That's a tough one. I mean, it's 65% of us that are visual learners, and so that, if it's out of sight, it's probably out of mind. yet we can't have everything in sight because there's simply no physical space, and things would become meaningless to us. So we have to have a mixture of things that are out for us, and then reminder systems to jog our memory for things that might be hidden. So I do recommend some desktop solutions, though, that keep things visible. And actually, I'm going to reach over here. I'm going to hide the file names, but this is a Smead product that I love and use. I don't know if you can see this.
You can't tell anybody that it's Smead, so okay, yeah.
No. Okay, so so that is a wonderful desktop filing system that actually, because it's got a stadium concept to it, it raises each file, so you can actually see the name of each individual file. And I'm a visual person too, so I get your pain. That's really important to me, to be able to distinguish each one so I can just grab it. I like to pick and pluck and be on with my day, so being able to see things, and that's my active files. Now, for my clients and my reference files, they can be in my filing cabinet, and with a good labeling system, am I good? I know which drawer has which content in it. So I might label the drawer to give me that initial cue. Then I open the drawer and I can see what's in it. So you might, like, for closed cupboards and things, you might just give yourself some larger category cues to find out what's in there, and then be confident that once you open the door, you can see everything. But you might want a mix of more open systems than closed systems, yet organizing tools to support really arranging things in a calm way, in a peaceful way. So magazine holders, these vertical stands, that kind of thing are going to help manage the real estate and keep you happy by giving you the information you need at your fingertips.
Claire, why don't you pass the visual organization question on to Debbie and ask her, especially in an office environment, how people can be visually organized?
Sure. So Debbie, this is for you. This is a question of just the same question I was responding to. For people that are visual and need to see things, what are your tips for organizing, particularly in an office?
Well, I think the fear of out of sight, out of mind that you were talking about is real for a lot of people, and I think the solution to that, or a solution to that, is to create visual reminders and having some sort of a task management system. So if I put things away in a drawer, but I have a reminder on a task management system to do something, I know right where to find it. In fact, I can even remind myself in that task management system where to look for that paper. So I don't think we're going to totally eliminate paper from our lives and not need to access it for things we need to do, but I think we can put it away as long as we have a good reminder system in place or good task management system. So, for example, I use Outlook tasks. I have very little paper out, but I have this trigger that tells me what I need to do and where to find the paper that's associated with it through Outlook tasks. There's all sorts of apps and solutions to managing your to-dos, but even a pen and paper list can work with the trigger of where to find the associated paper. So for visual, you know, I love whiteboards, if that's helpful to somebody. The Stadium file is another product that you mentioned, Claire, that I'm a fan of. In fact, I've done a review of it. And, you know, having a few things out, I think, works. Having too much out then becomes a distraction, and you're not able to focus on nor find the things that are truly important to you.
That's great advice. Deb Lee, this one's made for you. This is from Virginia, writing from Connecticut, so don't get that mixed up. But anyway, she's a CPA tax professional in mostly a paperless office, but she still likes the paper, and so she's trying to think, should I just go totally digital? She wants to still keep paper. How do you, because you're one who's into the apps and all those things, how do you help people who want to, have, still like their hands on paper, but, their whole office is going digital?
I don't think there's anything wrong with having some paper, and I don't think that we can completely go paperless or paper-free. I think we can reduce our reliance on having a piece of paper by using apps and even some, hardware that can help us digitize some of those documents, maybe have them stored in the cloud so that no matter where we are, we can access them. So I guess I would want to sort of fine-tune a system that works just for her. you know, to help her sort of go along with the office policies of having less paper, but also sort of determining which items that she feels she needs to hold on to, and to really figure out if there's another way for her to access them, and if how comfortable she is with that. So I don't think it's logical to say, yes, we should just go completely paper-free, but just reduce the reliance on paper. So a combination of cloud technology, some digitizing, and then figuring out which papers we must keep, but then we need to figure out where you're going to keep them and what you're going to call them so you can recall them when you need them.
Well, Deb, how about that idea of, you know, how do you organize a paper and a digital system together? Maybe even in terms of, you know, file names or whatever. How do you help people down that path when they've got to keep both?
I like to mimic the same process. So I don't think you should have a separate naming convention for a paper than for your digital papers. I think they both should sort of mirror each other so that it makes sense, the same structure. So if it's, you know, I think Debbie mentioned before having clients, residential, so maybe all of those files that deal with clients always have the client tag followed by something else that differentiates them. And so you want to make sure that whatever it is you're digitizing and storing, you know, on a different server or in the cloud is still mimicking the same kind of conventions that you would have for the paper filing cabinet. And that keeps everything more streamlined, so you don't have to remember two different sets of strategies. You're just relying on one. It's just that one is, you know, in your hand and the other one is stored someplace else.
Oh, that's awesome advice. Well, I'm going to ask each of you guys to. Oh, do you want Claire? Go ahead, follow up on that one.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to add absolutely the system, but don't forget about the benefits of the digital system in tagging, because that's something that doesn't exist in paper, and you want to take advantage of the ability to, through scanning and optical character recognition, be able to search for things without having to remember. It gives you something else to rely on if you can remember a keyword or search for a keyword rather than having to actually have the file name. But and one other thing on just going on paperless is I have found personally that there's an annual transition in the amount of paper coming in. It's reducing from my newspaper to the bills that are coming in. There is a natural migration, and rather than make work for myself by taking things that are in paper and scanning them, if I don't need them, then I'm keeping them in paper. And then the things that are progressing to digital naturally, I'm keeping in digital. So I'm thinking bookkeeping in particular here. I don't like what I call monkey work. So if I don't have to stand and scan or shred or anything, I won't do it. So keeping a system, if it's working as it is, and letting it progress naturally as your service provider migrates to digital billing, for example, that might be an effective way to reduce a lot of paper and reduce your work.
Yeah, I think the transitional approach, Claire, is really good there, because then it's not like I've got to, all of a sudden on January 1st I've got to be completely digital. You give your time to progress into that. So, all right, I'm going to go on to, I'm going to ask each of you this question. We'll start with Claire. She can pass it on to Debbie and then to Deb. This is a question from Pam, who's online, and hopefully this question could be taken both ways, but I think this is what she means. She's saying, what about your favorite books for, you know, how to get organized, or magazines, or any educational books? So I'm thinking that she's asking for book titles versus how do you organize those books. So any favorite organizing books that you guys like to recommend to people? Claire, we'll start with you. Okay,
so Debbie, sure, I'll start out just to throw Debbie the question now so you can think about it. We're looking for book recommendations on how to get organized. So I had some favorites. I think one of my favorites early out of the gate was Julie Morgenstern's book, and it's on the shelf in front of me. I could just actually why don't I do that? I'm just going to show you. When I turn my screen, is that going to work? Go.
Be careful. This is live TV. You never know what's going to happen.
I know, you never know, right? But there, you can see I've got Peter Walsh on this shelf, Julie Morgenstern, Organizing from the Inside Out. Peter Walsh wrote one about how to organize everything. There's a fantastic book about stuff and how to organize. We can have too many things in our lives. Did I lose you?
No, but yeah, actually, we got a nice we got a nice picture of your desk lamp, so at least we know that you have a nice desk lamp.
Oh no, okay. So anyway, their own. I think. Correct me wrong.
Okay, actually, I think we just did lose your audio there. Let's go over to Debbie Rosemont. Hopefully, she can take that question now. Actually, let's go to Deb Lee.
Yeah, well, I can take it. Yeah,
Okay.
that book that Claire mentioned, Organizing from the Inside Out, was one of the first ones that I read. That's by Julie Morgenstern, and it is a favorite of mine. Very easy to understand and to read, and with some sort of step-by-step instructions. She also has one on time management from the inside out. So some really good reading there. And I actually just took a look back at my shelf. I've got one, Organize Simplicity. Hi, Claire, she's back.
Okay.
Organizing Plain and Simple. Donna Smallin has several awesome books out there as well. So, and a colleague of ours, Julie Bestry, has one on how to manage paper. So that's a good one to check out.
Okay, Claire, now that we've got you back, do you want to pass the question on to Debbie?
Yeah, Debbie, your turn to tell your favorite organizing books. Now, sorry I threw that topsy-turvy in there.
That's okay. That's all right. So one of my favorite books is actually not about organizing necessarily, but it is about time management and productivity, which I think ties in, is The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Excellent small tips on getting more done, achieving goals. It's been one of my favorites for years. I like the Julie Morgenstern books as well, and sometimes we get requests for books specific to certain subsets of our organizing clients. So Judith Kohlberg has organizing friendly ways to organize with ADD. That's very good. Donna Goldberg has the Organized Students on student organizing, and again, I think there's a wealth of information out there. But what I find interesting is that with many of our organizing clients, we can get involved in organizing their books on organizing. So I would say, pick one at a time. If you don't think you really need to keep the book, we can look at electronic books or the library, or read it and pass it on when you're done with it. I think there's a few that are worth having on the shelf and referring back to for many of us. But don't have so many organizing books that you don't have time to read them and then end up having to organize your organizing books.
Well, and if we could just add something. I think that books are really great, but sometimes they don't work for everybody. So there can be all the greatest intentions, but you don't follow through on reading those books. And that's what organizers, that's what we're all here for, is to be the person that you can work with to help you move through. So if you have a collection of books and you're not getting to them, maybe the books aren't for you, and you really will benefit from working with somebody.
Agreed.
Deb Lee, someone asked again for the name of the book on organizing paper and who that was by.
Okay, if you give me a couple minutes, I'm going to do a quick search so I can find it. I know it's Julie Bestry, and I'm going to have to look that up, but okay. I promise I'll do that.
While you're looking that up, I'm going to throw this question back to Claire. Mm-hmm. What do you suggest for someone who has lots of files that need sorting out with loose paper notes just attached to the sides of them, and let's see, just scrolled out of my view here. With all these different parts of the file, papers coming out of the files, maybe the question is, how do you start organizing files when they're kind of getting out of hand?
I'm wondering if you have a product you'd like to mention here, John. I was wondering if there was a Smead product that exactly fit the bill for what you're looking for, because the name isn't coming to mind, but I know there are. When you're mentioning loose papers, what comes to mind for me are some of the folder systems with pockets that are built in. So if hanging on to things and organizing within a category are important, then certainly look into not just your average file folder, but look into some of the more robust options there that give you some flexibility. I know they're fantastic for project management or trip planning, that kind of thing. I use magazine holders a lot to get things vertical and group projects together and group lots of files together, and envelopes with a close around them to help contain things. So especially if something's going to be portable, you need to have it sealed, double sealed. So the file folder in with the case, for example. So there are tremendous products, many of which you make to tackle that problem.
Okay, now we're not trying to hawk products here, but we do have over 2,000. So if you were referring to a specific one, I can't name it off the top of my head. But anyway, let's move on. Claire, I'm going to ask you this question and then have you pass it on to Debbie as well. This is kind of about portable filing because someone asks that they live in a raised ranch. So upstairs is where all their paper and mail seems to come in to be processed, but the filing and storage takes place down in their office. They've tried everything, and they mean everything, to come up with a system, including a portable file that they can carry, but it still seems to get out of control. Any thoughts on, and you can have Debbie answer this too, how to handle paper that comes in one place but has to end up somewhere else?
So, Debbie, the question is how to handle paper that comes in one place, say by the front door, yet where they process paper is up the stairs, around the corner, down the hall, in the office, okay? And so, obviously, there's a disconnect between paper, where it's coming in, and the work that's going to be done. I'm going to take a shot at answering it, and then I'm going to pass it to you. So, I think number one thing is to, wherever paper is coming in, do the initial cull of anything that's not relevant straight into the recycling bin or potentially into the shredder if it's a credit card application or something with sensitive information on it. So immediately there, close to that spot, have a recycling receptacle. From there, this is behavior. This is changing human behavior, and that's very hard to do. So rather than having a second station where you're sorting or anything like that, I would be trying to coach one person's responsibility and a second backup person on actually taking that stack of mail to the place that it needs to be processed immediately. Because putting it in some interim thing probably just creates an interim thing that gets stuffed at and not looked at. So we've already got the place of incoming, we've got to get it from there right to where you're going to process it. Now, what I find is a really big problem is that people set up offices, sometimes in the basement, sometimes in dark places, and they actually don't like being in them. So they think they're going to process their paper there, but they're not. So better to be honest about actually where you like to process, and if it's in the kitchen, at the counter while the kids are doing their homework, then set up your station for processing paper right there. So get true to where you like to be and try and set up the system there, and it should flow. Debbie, over to you.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like the disconnect. In my mind, it is, bring the mail in and try to get it immediately to wherever that paper is going to be processed. The processing of paper, to me, means making decisions on what needs to happen with it. It doesn't necessarily mean doing all the work. You can have systems in place when work needs to be deferred for some reason. So if you're rushing in, at least getting that paper to where the work will eventually happen, and then making quick decisions. Can you delete it is the first question. Does it need to go to somebody else? Does it belong to a family member or somebody else in your office, and getting it in their hands? Is it something that you can just do quickly, a minute or less, and be done with? Do you need to file it away for reference? And if you can't do that right now, to have a two-file bin or file works. And then lastly, the fifth decision is to defer it for action, but get it into your action management system, whatever that might be. So I would get that paper into the place where that work's going to happen, but processing it, to me, is quick. It's just quickly making decisions, getting paper to where it needs to be. It doesn't necessarily mean stopping everything and doing all the work right then. You can plan that out. And to Claire's point also, if it feels cumbersome to continue to take the mail upstairs, around the corner, down the hall, and over the river and through the woods, then maybe moving the area where the work happens might be a better idea. Otherwise, getting the paper to where the work will happen, I think, is important so that nothing gets lost in the cracks.
Those are great tips. Okay, we're going to go to a pre-submitted question. And by the way, for those online, a couple of questions about whether there'll be a replay. Later this week, you can actually go to the same place you registered, which is smead.com/hangout, and the replay of this episode will be posted there. Also, if you missed our one in October with Linda Samuels, Leslie Josell, and Geraldine Thomas. That is posted as well. And then along with that, this week on our podcast, we are actually doing highlights from the hangout that we had in October. So you can find out about our podcast at smead.com/podcast. We got about 20 minutes left to go here, so we're going to try to take as many questions as we can, put them in the chat. We will answer questions on Twitter at hashtag Organizer411. And then this one was submitted by Melody, who is an assistant principal at a school in Chicago. She says, I feel that recycling and reusing items is important, as well as preventing things from going into a landfill whenever possible. But she says this belief system prevents me from being as organized and as efficient as I'd like. And I think what she means there, I'm going to throw this to Deb Lee, I think she is maybe concerned about throwing things away or purging, but how can the two work together? How can you be an advocate for recycling and reusing things and also an advocate for purging?
I think you can do both successfully, and I think you need a system that works for your comings and goings, because obviously recycling, while those are things that need to leave. They need to come out of your home. They may not be going into the trash, but they still need to leave your home, and so there has to be a system built in so that you can do that relatively easily, so that they're not piling up. So, one of the hardest things for me, at least back when I used to go in to see clients all the time, was I would see a pile of, plastic bottles and, things to be recycled that became a part of the homeowner's landscape. It just became clutter. The thing that they're trying to get away from just sort of, mushroomed from these items. So come up with a system of getting them out, much like you would have a system for getting rid of things like clothing that are in good condition that you're going to be donating. If you leave them in the house too long, then they're just going to kind of sit around. So to find a way to take something with you as you're leaving, sometimes, I would suggest that you put these items directly in the car immediately. Don't leave them in the house. Put them in the car, which is the closest point to the next point, which is the donation spot, or in this case, the recycling would be to take it out into, maybe there's a recycling bin in the garage or on the curb, wherever that might be, to just sort of regularly take things out so that they're not just sitting around and becoming a part of the problem.
I think recycling and reusing is such a big concept that, Claire, can both you and Debbie Rosemont answer that question?
Yeah, so we're talking about recycling and reusing and how important that is. I want to go back in the process, actually, though, when people are acquiring things, because I think making judicious decisions when you're bringing things into your home is really the first step, and it's not often the one that's talked about. And so I came up with the phrase that I'm for people that are acquiring lots of things, to put the brakes on a little bit, is to start photoshopping. And by Photoshop, I mean shop with your camera and take them a picture of the item instead of taking home the item itself. That's one concept. Concept number two is to be loud with the people that you're buying for in terms of their respect for the environment, in terms of packaging, because there is so much wasteful packaging and not all of it is recyclable. I know where I live, some of the plastic is, but a lot of the plastic is still not. And one particular big box store I was shopping at, I would, what I'm going to do is take a picture of the packaging that they're using to sell bathing suits in particular and send them a message and saying, this is not cool. Like, there's got to be a better way that's still cost effective to you to tell me what a size 8 bathing suit is, and I'll still want to buy it and take it home. This is not rocket science, but we're disrespecting the environment. And then I'll tell you, when I take home this 3-foot piece of plastic to display this bathing suit, it's now my responsibility to get it in and out of my house, and I resent that. So I'm going to just say, backing up to the initial acquisition of things, we have a responsibility and a voice that we might consider using. Rant over.
So can I add in here, as far as kind of the reuse and recycle, I know when we work with clients, many of them, whether they're our corporate clients or residential clients, are excited about what we consider really the 4th or 5th step in our process, which is buying containers. They want things to look a certain way, and to be attractive, but that is, as Claire mentioned, it's immediately bringing more into the space before clearing clutter and deciding what you need to have go into, if any, containers. So that's a fourth step in our process for a reason, so that we can be conscious about what it is that needs to be contained, and can we reuse or recycle anything that the client already has. That's always, you know, we talk about shopping in your own home. Can we repurpose something that may, you know, be on its way out or might not be optimized for a particular purpose? You know, we like to be as environmentally friendly as possible, but it also impacts our pocketbook when we can avoid shopping for new things and make better use of what we already have, or repurpose something in a new way. And so it's fun to try and be creative with ways to do that.
All right, Deb Lee, I'm going to combine a couple of questions here, if I can keep them from scrolling in front of me. And some of this kind of picks up on what we talked about before, but Stephanie said, you know, I get some information mail physically as actual paper and some digitally as email or feeds. Same with appointments. I get some electronically and I get some when I write them down into my paper calendar. How to consolidate that? And then Lisa kind of follows up. What's the recommended task management system used both in digital and paper? So I don't know if you could tie those two together at all.
I don't think there's one cookie cutter way to go here, and though there are a myriad of apps and there are lots of planners and calendars that anyone can get, but I think we have to figure out what works best for you. I know for me, I like having a gadget. I like having an app that I open because I always have my phone with me. But you know, even now I'm sitting here and I'm listening to what my colleagues are saying. I'm writing down the names of the people you're telling. I'm writing. You know, when I need to take something down, in terms of notes, I like to write. So I think I would try to figure out sort of what is it you're trying to accomplish and what is your natural style. I don't think there's anything wrong with paper. I love tech, but there's nothing wrong with paper at all. So if paper is the way to go, then find the one that kind of matches up with how you think and how you know, there are some planners that have, you know, a month at a glance, sometimes it's a week at a glance. You know, which one really works best for you? And if it's not a planner, do you really want to investigate an app that you would always have with you because you'd always have your phone or your tablet with you, so that you would always be connected to that and not lose that and not forget something? So to first figure out, is it paper or tech, or like me, a little bit of a hybrid where I take notes writing in a notebook, but when it's task management and other things, I use an app. So I would probably start with that.
That's great, and I want to tease you. There is actually a speed product coming out after the first of the year that is going to be something where you can actually take notes with it digitally, but that's all I'm going to tell you because I'm sworn to secrecy on it. But you'll have to just tune in after the beginning of the year for that. But Claire, any advice from you as far as when you're still using both paper and digital, like is there a certain calendar or app, or, you know, I find myself running to that too. You know, I'm at the dentist's office and I put the appointment in my phone, but, you know, it's not on the paper calendar at home that everyone shares. So how do you bridge the gap?
Well, by using both generally, but you want to avoid the tediousness of double entry. That's and also of updating it one place and not updating it the other, and so not really knowing which one is current. So I migrated finally after many years from a day timer that I used religiously for years to my iPhone, which is the technology that I use now, and that's because I need access to that calendar on the fly. I also like the fact that it's backed up. If I lost my day timer now, I'd be mortified in front of clients trying to figure out, you know, how many commitments I had made. So I like that aspect of the technology. However, like Deb, I like to take notes and I like to handwrite. I think there's something through the exercise of writing and the wiring, the way we've been brought up, that solidifies some of the learning, and I think there's science that backs that up. So what I have done is I've downloaded a couple apps to a tablet that I use, and I physically write with a pen in those apps. Now, I can't write as small as I would on paper because the stylus doesn't work, but I can do pages and pages of colorful notes and doodles and drawings, and I find that I can back it up, and so I kind of have the best of both worlds using that technology.
Yeah.
All right, we got to let Debbie chime in on, because I know she's up in the Northwest area. There are a lot of tech companies. How do you reconcile the paper and the digital, like appointment keeping and making them work together?
Yeah, so Debbie, how do you reconcile the fact that there are paper options and digital options for calendar management and even note-taking? How are you reconciling the two choices that people have? What do you recommend?
When I'm asked what the best planner is to use, electronic or paper, and you know, there's so many options for both, my answer is always it's the one that you're going to use.
Yeah.
And I emphasize the word one because I do think it's important to have one calendaring and task management system that you can rely on and dive into with both feet. So if somebody really likes the paper and pencil and the feel of that, I say stick with it and use it, but keep it with you always. Keep it up to date. If somebody is more comfortable with the electronic options that are out there and likes the ability to sync things up and back them up, as Claire mentioned, and really have them accessible from a number of different devices and from wherever you are, even if you happen to leave the paper and pencil behind, then there's lots of great options there. So I also prefer to take notes when I'm in a client meeting or really any sort of meeting on paper, but most of everything that I do is electronic. So I do scan in my notes, and I have a scanner that makes that very easy. It takes a second to do it. It's a push of a button, and then I keep those notes. I happen to use Evernote for organizing and storing my notes, but that gets them into my electronic system while still allowing me to take notes in the old-fashioned way, if you will. And I feel like for me that works better when I'm sitting across from a client. I could have Evernote open and be taking notes electronically, but then there's a screen between us, or even a tablet there, and there are times when that would work really well. Other times I just prefer to do it on paper and then scan it in and have it that way. So that's how I make the use of both options, but for me primarily I'm trying to be more digital and electronic.
Well, and I think that's great great advice. Ellen, who's on live, says I use a clipboard and a yellow lined paper pad. So okay. You know what? You do what works for you. Deb Lee, someone is just dying to know what's hanging on the wall behind you with the colored boxes at the top.
Okay, so that was my attempt at using paper. All right, so I really, yeah, I'm a hybrid person. I love the tech and the paper, but I find that the paper I love is, you know, notebook paper that I can, you know, like with this notebook, I can take this out, take the paper out, put it back in. That's the kind of paper I love. Back there is a paper calendar with Post-it notes that you can write on and then take the Post-it and move it to another block on the calendar, and I just, it's there. I haven't used it, but I love the color. I love the colors when I walked into my office, so I leave it there. I know that's horrible, but you know, that's just one example of paper that didn't work for me, but it might work for someone else. So that's what that is. It's actually a calendar.
Will you be listing that on eBay soon?
I'd be happy to.
Claire, I want you to pass this question on to Debbie because someone's wondering what scanner that she uses.
Oh, sure. Well, I have a, I've tried a number. I have a flatbed. I'll pass it on to Debbie too, but I have a flatbed scanner that I still use and a Fujitsu ScanSnap, which I like because it's not proprietary technology. A lot of people like the Neat scanner, but Debbie, which one do you use? Which is your favorite?
I also have the Fujitsu ScanSnap, and I have kind of a middle-of-the-road version. There's one that's less expensive and very portable, one that I have a desktop that's kind of middle of the road, and then there's one with a lot more bells and whistles in their primary line, but that's worked really well for me.
And I'm one of those Neat users. I have a Neat Connect that I use.
Great, and I want to pass along, Megan also says in the notes that Evernote also has a paper planner that backs up digitally. So there are a lot of options, and the things come out, and now a lot of people are kind of mad at me because I'm teasing them about this new product, but you know, I had to like sign an agreement and say, you know, and I shouldn't have even mentioned it. You know, it's one of those things saying I have a secret, but I can't tell you, so you'll just have have to tune in after the first of the year. We got a few minutes left. We do have a few aspiring professional organizers, and I want to ask each of you this question. We'll start with Claire and then move through Debbie and Deb. How do you get your business going in 30 seconds?
How do you get your business going, Debbie? Think about that. You know what? I'll give you the trick that really got my business off the ground was participating in a lot of silent auctions. And I did that because I negotiated the receipt of the list of people that were interested in bidding on the service. And I'll tell you why that was important, because they were committed to spending money on the service. And so it is an investment. It's a great investment in your future, but you want to connect with people that are really motivated to, at least I like motivated clients, people that are ready to work. And that was a great list. So I would call up those people and give them an offer even though they hadn't won the auction, and that's the way my business got off the ground. Debbie, over to you.
Yeah. For me, it really has been networking and building relationships with people. So that's how I like to grow the business. A lot of it has been word of mouth. So we make a client happy, and they tell some friends, and they tell some business associates, and we get more business. But nurturing relationships with other people who serve our clients or our target clientele has been really valuable as well, and it's kind of fun. So that's been a great way to help grow our businesses through some strategic partnerships and building relationships.
All right, Debbie, your chance to give advice to that aspiring professional organizer.
I'm going to piggyback off of Debbie's comments. I found that when I was starting out, there were lots of really nice people who sort of took me under their wing. There were people that I networked with, people that I subbed for, just to kind of see if it was the right fit for me. I think that's something to think about. Are you, to make sure this is sort of the thing you really want to end up doing forever and ever, your forever job. So I would say networking, and I did some live auctions as well. I tried a number of things to see what would work and resonate for my company. So what might work for one may not work for the other, but certainly, don't be afraid to try different things, unique things, interesting things, and sort of stick your neck out a little bit, not maybe the whole neck, but a little bit, just to see what might work for you.
All right, well, we're getting ready to wrap up here. Deb Lee, let's stay on you and just ask you what kind of business you conduct on a daily basis, what kind of clients you're looking for, how people can get a hold of you, and do you do virtual, local? Give us a lowdown on your business.
Wow, that's a whole lot. Okay, so people can find me at sohotechtraining.com. They can find me on just about any social network, especially Twitter. I'm on Twitter quite heavily, and I work with. So I do some virtual work. I do have some coaching clients that I do Skype or Hangouts with, much like this. So not in person anymore, not as much anyway. And I also have, clients that are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or micropreneurs who are looking for, applications that can help them run their companies better. A lot of times they're looking for productivity applications, and I help them through that as well. So again, it's sohotechtraining.com, and look out for me on the internet as well.
All right, and I'm sure you'll be monitoring the hashtag, which is hashtag Organizer411. We'll be checking that after the program today, too, so if you have additional questions, we'll kind of camp out there as well. Claire, tell us about your business and who you work with.
Thank you. So streamlife.ca, I've been organizing and providing productivity consulting for 10 years, and I'm looking for clients that are, my sweetest client to work with, if you will, is generally a woman, because they're great at asking for help. And there's so much going on. There's so much going on. It's a job, it's children, it's trying to integrate work and life. And I like to consider myself a Thrive coach now. So I'm looking at, actually, I've got a team of organizers in Toronto and across Canada providing organizing service, but my real goal right now is to attract clients that want to work with me virtually through Skype and Google Hangouts potentially and the phone, to really get good at taking the bumps out of their personal and professional life so they can really thrive. And I'm really also excited about doing a lot more speaking engagements. So willing to travel internationally and really take those messages about how to thrive through your life. Because I think in the corporate world particularly, there's a lot of burnout, people on the brink of burnout, if you will. And I think we've got to catch it early before the warning signs turn into danger signs, and you fall into some kind of calamity that you can't reverse. So that's my personal mission, and so people can find me on streamlife.ca.
All right, pass it over to Debbie so Debbie can let us know, Claire.
Yeah, so Debbie, you're up. Please tell everyone about your business and the kind of clients you're working with.
Sure. Again, Simply Placed is the name of our business, and it's simplyplaced.com/SMED for today if you want to go take a look at the website. We have both a residential division and a corporate division. So we have a team of organizers. There's 7 of us all together, and we work with busy families and busy professionals. So whether somebody's looking to get and stay organized at home, or whether they're an employee or have a team of employees in the company and want to make sure they're making good use of their time so that they get the best results at work, we love to do consulting and training on the corporate end as well. We work with people in person as well as virtually, and there's many ways to do that. And I would just invite everyone on the Hangout today to take a look at the website if you're interested. And if you're feeling overwhelmed about an organizing project, like we talked about at the beginning, think about how to break it down into small pieces and then ask for help. We really can act kind of as a personal trainer does and help you make the most of your project, maximize the results with minimizing the effort. So we'd love to help if we can.
That's
Hey, John.
great. Yes.
I just a quick thing. I looked up that information about the book on paper.
Yes.
And it's actually not a book. It's a report with some tips, and it's called "Do I Have to Keep This Piece of Paper?" by Julie Bestry. She also has a book that she just did on small businesses and how to organize your small business. So if you go to her website, juliebestry.com, you'll see both of those, especially that one on paper.
Awesome. And, all 3 of you and Julie as well have been involved on our podcasts.
Yes.
So we do one every week. You can find those at smeed.com/podcast. We will have a replay of this Organizer411 Hangout. It'll be at smeed.com/hangout, same place that you register. Before you all go, I'd like you to just pop in the chat box real quick and let me know if this is something you like. If you'd like to see more of these, we'd love to do them. We have some technical challenges here and there, but it's something that we would like to do more of coming up in the next year. So thank you all for attending today. We're at the top of the hour and it's time to be done. And we hope to do another one of these in 2015.
Thanks very much, John.
Bye, you guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you later.
Bye.